and an infectious smile. Kelly was the third child of Sue and Jim Moy, their only daughter. Growing up, she really was the girl next door. She was athletic and loved to play sports. And when she...
This is a special report from the WB11 News.
Good morning. You are looking at a live shot right now of the World Trade Center. It is on fire. We believe a plane crashed into that center just a bit ago. I'm Lynn White, sitting with Sukanya Krishnan, and we're going to tell you more and more about this story as it unfolds. You can see the picture right now. This building is over 100 stories tall. We understand that a plane, a twin-engine plane, either a 727 or a 737, crashed into the building.
As you can see, the black smoke billowing out. This is over 100 stories. This happened around 8:40. That's what we are hearing. Eyewitness counts are saying that there is debris falling to the ground, as well as people are evacuating on the streets. Of course, that whole area of Lower Manhattan is being closed down as firefighters are called to the scene and are fighting this. Of course, this is an eerie scene as we look at our Metro cam looking east, I believe, looking east down the river, and you can see the black smoke billowing into the crowd. A lot of uncertainty right now as to what is happening. You can see there are choppers. I believe that could be a police helicopter that is... Oh!
Wow.
We just saw...
Oh, my goodness. You are looking at another live picture right now. Oh, my goodness.
Of what I believe was a plane that just hit
another plane. This
Tower 2.
Does not look like an accident of any kind at this point. Another plane has hit Tower 2, the Twin Towers. You hate to say the words, but what comes to mind right now, terrorist attack. That is what it looks like at this point. This is something that you've seen on live television just unfolding. There are 110 stories in this building, many employees in this building at this hour. The first plane that went through, again, a twin engine plane is what we're being told, 727, 737. We don't know what else just crashed into the second twin tower. The area, I'm sure right now, is flooded with all kinds of emergency crews, people being evacuated from these buildings. Haven't seen anything like this ever before develop on live television in New York.
Lynn, an unbelievable sight. We saw Tower 1, a plane allegedly crashing, obviously crashing into Tower 1. And just moments ago, we saw another plane crashing into Tower 2. You can see that it is on fire.
Yes.
Midway through the building.
Both
you can see it's on
right
fire.
Now. Yes.
And you can see the black, amazing. I'm speechless at this moment.
I think anybody watching has to be. Now, we do have Melinda Murphy on the way. We're going to replay this shot for you. You can see the second plane going into Tower 1 right now. Look at, if you take a look, here
and
it
that
comes.
looks like a large twin engine plane
crashing right into it.
An
unbelievable video right there.
Speechless.
Speechless is right. Now, again, there are many people in both of these buildings. Of course, at this point, we do not know the extent of any damage. It is what you're seeing right there. We do not know how many people are left in those buildings and what the casualties might be at this point.
Right now, we are not hearing any immediate word on injuries or fatalities in this disaster, which happened shortly after 9 a.m. All we know is witness accounts saying, and I'm quoting this from the AP, the plane was coming in low and it looked like it hit at a slight angle.
That's exactly what we just saw with the second plane that crashed in front of our very eyes just a few moments ago.
As you can see, large holes were visible in two sides of this 110-story building, one of the landmark Twin Towers. Once again, we're going to go to this replay where we're seeing again.
Here it is. You can see the plane coming in on the right. Watch as it veers around.
Veers around and almost intentional.
It looks certainly intentional to those of us who are watching. This, we should say, is restricted airspace. No planes are allowed in or near this area, so it would have to be, we would assume, intentional.
And Lynn, we're hearing that this happened.
There it is. That's what we just saw happen just a few minutes ago.
Shortly after 9:04, explosion rocks the second World Trade Center tower. As you can see, flames shoot into the sky. Massive explosion on Tower 2.
Right.
As firefighters try to get control of what was happening in Tower 1, you have this happening once again. Intensity, more smoke, more danger. People obviously scrambling.
Right. You can only imagine what's going on inside that building right now. People are scrambling to get down. We remember the last incident in the Twin Towers.
That was in February of 1993 when a car bomb at the World Trade Center in New York City exploded, killing 6 people, injuring...
And that was at the base.
That was at the base, injuring thousands, causing extensive damage. You know, the FBI arrested 4 radical Muslims who were convicted in 1994. And
now we have this, what you see before your very eyes right here. One plane crashing just after 8 o'clock, another crashing just a few minutes ago in front of our cameras live. And we're going to show that to you one more time, and we do have Melinda Murphy on the way to this, what appears to be a tragedy, and it appears to be a terrorist act at this point from what we can see.
We're going to go to the replay once again. Okay, we're going to get to that replay. But Lynn, you remember the World Trade Center bombing back in 1993.
Absolutely.
And as a result of that, there was a lot of...
caution, but caution on the ground, I might say. There's very little you can do to protect a building like this from the air, other than to restrict airplanes from going in and out of the area, which is the law. Well, but obviously that was not heeded today.
The NYPD also stepped up ground patrol. There were lots of roadblocks that were put in. There was a lot of restricted air area on the ground. And once again, we're seeing what's happening here. Are we going to go to this replay?
Here we are.
Okay.
Here you're seeing the second plane coming into focus right there. It is rounding, here it is, rounding the building, rounding the first tower, which had been struck by a plane just about 20 minutes, a half an hour before. And there it hits the other tower.
And that was shortly after 9:04 this morning when the explosion rocked the second World Trade Center tower. We are also hearing reports in Brooklyn because of the extensive nature of this that ash is pouring down in Brooklyn. Once again, we are back live.
This is what you're seeing right now. This is the aftermath. This is the chopper, Chopper 11. Melinda Murphy's up there with Chet, who's taking the photographs right now. And you can see the intense billowing there. You can see the aftermath of what we believe are two, and we're going to say this, 2 possible terrorist planes attacking the World Trade Center, both towers of the World Trade Center. We do not know the extent of any injuries. We do assume that there are people inside both of those towers. This is the business hour. This is the second time that this particular building has been attacked in this city.
Is Melinda from Air 11 available?
We will get to her in a few minutes, but you are seeing her pictures right now, and we'll hear her report in just a minute.
What is amazing here, Lynn, is you're looking at this gaping hole. You're looking at a building that has been an icon for most of the New York City skyline, if you can say that.
And it's also been a target now, as we said.
Targeted in 1993, and it looks like it's being targeted again today at 9:09.
Exactly.
On this Wednesday.
Unbelievable. And again, one of those explosions you saw right here live. This happened just after 9 o'clock this morning.
Once again, let's go back to the first World Trade Center bombing that we knew of. That was back in February of 1993. A car bomb at the World Trade Center exploded, killing 6 people, injuring thousands, causing extensive damage. Many of us were there on the ground covering it, and what an intense and frightening experience it was for so many New Yorkers.
And you remember the terror on the faces of the people inside these buildings when this happened back in '93, and they were crying and trying to get out of the building, scrambling to get down the stairs. 110 floors in this building, so we can only imagine the turmoil, the destruction, the mayhem inside that building as we speak right now. What an incredible sight you're seeing right now. You are seeing the result of 2 planes crashing into both towers of the World Trade Center, an apparent terrorist attack once again on this icon of a building.
And this is a shot that we just saw, the wide shot of Air 11 taking us down the Upper West Side, down the west side of Manhattan, all the way to Lower Manhattan. You can see the huge gaping holes. We also saw an ominous shot of the Empire State Building sort of looming in the background. And
it's amazing. This, by the way, we've been telling you this is 110 stories. These are actually the tallest buildings in New York City, the 3rd tallest skyscrapers in the world. And there's an observation deck that you can see this at on the 107th floor. Obviously, that's a part of what looks to be damaged at this point. You're looking at live shots right now from Air 11. We're going to try to get to Melinda Murphy in a few minutes. She's got a bird's eye view.
And you can see the flames are still pouring
inside
out there.
the building. Amazing. And we do apparently assume that there are people in that building at this hour because there was no warning. One happened at 8 o'clock, right after 8 o'clock, and the second just after 9 o'clock.
Well, witnesses are reporting that the two explosions were about 18 minutes apart. The second explosion came after an aircraft crashed into the upper floors of one of the World Trade Center towers this morning. Black smoke was seen pouring as we see it pouring out right now, two gaping holes. It's right now not clear what caused the second explosion, though we did see that plane coming right into that tower, yes. And that's video that you cannot.
It's just unfolding before your eyes, and you read about these things, you hear about them, but we actually saw this happen in front of us, and it's just astounding, amazing. And you're looking again, close-up shot. You can see inside the fire that is emerging from that building, from the inside of the building. Again, assuming that there are people in the building. It would be hard to evacuate with such little notice.
As you can see, the tops of the Twin Towers are absolutely obscured by smoke. Obviously, a hindrance for firefighters trying to get control and get access to the top floors to try and try and get some sort of control over what's happening in the Twin Towers.
Right.
Thousands of pieces of what appeared to be office paper came drifting over Brooklyn, about 3 miles from the tower, according to one witness, Lynn. Now, this
is happening again. Now, it's interesting because back in 1945, an Army Air Corps B-25, a twin-engine bomber, crashed into the 79th floor of the Empire State Building in dense fog. That apparently, obviously, an accident. This looks to be an attack. What can we say other than the fact that we saw two planes crash into both towers within what witnesses are saying
18 minutes
of each other, and this is restricted air territory.
Since 1993, the NYPD, of course, has been heightening its terroristic combative methods, and
yes.
how they've been heightened ever since.
But again, mostly on the ground, because if you go to the World Trade Center, you see the barricades, you see the increased police presence there. But there's little you can do when you're talking about the upper floors. Now, we're going to show you once again what happened here live in front of our eyes just after 9 o'clock this morning.
It's 9:13 right now. This was at 9:04 this morning.
Second plane coming in to the right of your screen.
It goes behind Tower 2, and watch this. Behind Tower 2, and it collides.
Incredibly explodes in Tower 1 right there. Fiery explosion, assuming there are people inside.
Since 1993, once again, we're going to go back to the World Trade Center bombing, a car bomb at the World Trade Center, killing 6 people. The NYPD, the terrorism squad, New York City police have definitely heightened their sense of security at landmark buildings throughout the city, from the World Trade Center to the Empire State Building to the UN. All of this is definitely
Okay, we've got Melinda now, who's live for us. She's been taking these pictures. Melinda, tell us what you're looking at. Melinda, can you hear us? All right, we're going to go to Melinda in just a few minutes.
Good morning. You're looking at live pictures of the World Trade Center Tower 1 from Manhattan Lower District. As you can see, we have a very serious fire in the World Trade Center. What we understand, the information is still early in coming, but what we understand is that 2 separate planes have hit Tower 1, which is the tower that you're seeing on your picture right now. As you can see, there are flames. There is a massive fire here at this Tower 1 of the World Trade Center. It's in the upper portion of the building, probably the upper quarter of the tower. Now, of course, the problem with fighting something like this is that it is you can't do an external attack. Firefighters are going to have to go on the inside of this building to actually fight this particular fire. They're going to have to be using things like high-rise packs and standpipe packs. They're going to be setting up a command center here, and they'll be using a cascade system to refill their air bottles. Now, the air bottles only carry 30 to 45 minutes of air, so you can imagine what it's going to be like to try to attack this fire, because they're going to have to climb up this many stories to get to the actual fire, and then probably immediately have to turn around and get their air packs repacked. Now, what we understand is, again, 2 separate planes have hit this. We don't understand why at this point, but we do know that 2 planes, we're not sure what size planes they were, but we think they were substantial in size, have hit the World Trade Center. This, again, is Tower 1. We do not know exactly what happened as far as to why they have hit this, but you can see that there is a big plume of smoke which is towering into the air. I would say it goes back a couple of miles at this point, even further. You can certainly see it from almost anywhere in this area. Both towers have smoke coming out of them, so it is possible at this point that Tower 2 is also on fire. It's hard for us to tell at this vantage point. As you can well imagine, police are keeping us at distance from this so that they can do the work they need to do. What we recommend to you people who are watching this from Lower Manhattan is to please turn off your water. Do not use any water that you do not need. Do not use your dishwasher. Do not use your washing machine. Firefighters need all the water pressure they can gather at this point. It's also a very good idea to stay out of Lower Manhattan. Firefighters and other emergency equipment are trying to make their way there right now. And as you can imagine, this has probably already been made an all-hands emergency. That basically means that everybody, even if people are off of work right now, they have been called in to battle this blaze. Again, for those of you who are just joining us, you are looking at live pictures of the World Trade Center. That is Tower 1 on your screen right now. 2 separate planes have hit the World Trade Center. We are not certain why that has happened, but it has happened. You can see the flames through the smoke there, and there is a very dark, nauseous fume coming out of that. We can almost smell it from where we are, which is several miles away at this point. You can also see the plume of smoke from many, many miles away. Now again, as we said, it's going to be very hard and very difficult to battle this blaze because it is in the upper portion of this tower. Tower 2 also has smoke coming out of it, and we again are not sure exactly what that is about. We'll again try to keep you up to date with this as we get more information, but what we do know is that 2 separate planes have hit the World Trade Centers. We do have firefighters on the scene. They are going to have to do an internal battle of this blaze. They cannot do anything from the external because it's so high. Makes it very difficult to vent a fire like this as well. It also makes it difficult to battle it because they're going to have to use high-rise packs, and they're also going to have to use bottles, air bottles, and the air bottles only carried a 30 to 45 minute supply. Then they have to go back to the cascade system to refill, so they're going to have to be bringing bottles up as they fight and as they battle this throughout the morning. So it will take some time to get this cleared. There will be obviously a lot of traffic in and around downtown Manhattan. It's a very good idea to stay out of the downtown area. Please do not use your water unless you have to. Firefighters need all the water that they can garner at this point. And again, as you can see, this is still an ongoing battle. I mean, we have major flame inside this building. You can imagine the heat of this. And of course, the World Trade Center is no stranger to fire and to other problems. There was the World Trade Center bombing several years ago. Firefighters do know the layout of this building, but it has been several years since this happened. So again, there will be some new firefighters on the scene of this. As you also remember, there was a B-52 which hit the B-25, correct that, B-25, which hit the Empire State Building many years ago after the war. And so this is the second building in Manhattan to have been hit by a plane. Again, we're not sure if both planes or one plane was hit. It looks like perhaps both fire towers are on fire. We're not sure exactly what happened here. But again, 2 separate planes have hit the World Trade Centers. There is a major fire battling right now. Firefighters are in there for a major fight. The stairwells, of course, are how people are going to be evacuated. People will be evacuated out of these buildings. Do not, if you're watching this from the World Trade Center, do not get on an elevator. It is not a good idea to use an elevator in the middle of a fire. Obviously, the water and other fire can short out the equipment, so you will have to walk down. The World Trade Centers, of course, are among the tallest buildings in the world, making this an even more complicated fire to battle. Fortunately, the good thing that we can say is that the firefighters in Manhattan are very, very talented when it comes to fighting high-rise fires. This is what they do best. They've been trained for it and trained for it and trained for it, and today is the day they're going to have to use that training. Again, for you who are just joining us, we are showing you live pictures of the World Trade Centers. As you can see, they are on fire, both towers. The tower on the left is Tower 1. The tower on your right is Tower 2. We understand that 2 separate planes have hit the World Trade Centers. We are not sure if they if there was some kind of technical malfunction, if this was some type of other attack. We're not exactly sure what happened yet. We do know 2 separate planes. We feel that they are fairly substantial in size from initial reports. We do not know exactly what they were. But again, both towers are on fire. Tower 1 obviously suffering the biggest fire from what we can see at our vantage point. We are not able to move to a different point simply because the police have asked us to stay back so they can do the work that they need to do in this general area. They are setting up a general command center, or at least you would be expected for them to be able to do that, to be able to set up a general command center. Now then, high-rise packs are being used here. We have a cascade system, which is used to refill the air bottles. Air bottles carry to 30 to 45 minutes worth of air, as we just mentioned, and that's how they're going to have to use this because these fumes are very noxious. If you're somebody, again, watching from the World Trade Center, it's a good idea if you're in the middle of this fire to be sure and fill your door before you actually open it. If it is hot, it is better to leave the door closed than it is to open it and let the flame in. Also, it's better to hit the floor and not stand up. Smoke rises, and the smoke, of course, will go to the ceiling if you are watching this from the World Trade Center. Again, use the stairwell. Do not use the elevators. That is the worst thing that you can do. For those of you who are not in the World Trade Center and watching this down in Lower Manhattan, please turn off your water. Do not use any water you do not need. They will need all the water pressure they can possibly garner at this point. This is a tough blaze to battle. Obviously, if a jetliner hits or any type of plane hits an World Trade Center like this, there's going to be a lot of fuel on board possibly. That fuel is very difficult to put out, and of course all the other stuff inside the building itself, which is going to give quite a bit of fuel to this fire. Firefighters will probably issue an all-hands call. That means everybody who is available, including those who are off for the day, will be called in to battle this blaze. That is the highest of all alarms, higher than a general alarm, and that means firefighters from all over the area will be called to battle the blaze. Again, it will be an internal attack. They cannot do anything externally because of the height of this. It's the top portion of the World Trade Center, the very top portion of the World Trade Center. We have maybe, I would say it's probably the top fifth of the World Trade Center, Tower 1, and maybe the top half of World Trade Center 2. Again, we're not sure if both or one of the towers was hit by a plane, but we do know two separate planes hit the towers, and that has resulted in this battle of the blaze that we are watching right now. We do see flames in Tower 1. You can see it at the base of the smoke on the left, and we do know that there's some very serious fire which they're having to battle here today.
Okay, that was Melinda Murphy. You've been listening to Melinda Murphy live from Chopper 11. Over what you can see is a raging fire. Two planes. Now, we just got this in. A senior government official, speaking on condition of anonymity, said that the FBI is now pursuing reports that one or both of the planes that crashed into the two towers of the World Trade Center were hijacked, and the crashes may have been the result of a suicide mission. And we should stress that these are preliminary reports, but the quote is from the FBI, it certainly does not look like an accident.
Now, the New York
yes.
yeah.
Here's the plane. We're going to replay it. This is the second plane that crashed into Tower 1. This happened just after 9 o'clock this morning. The first plane crashed in 18 minutes before. Again, the FBI now reporting that there were planes, maybe one or more, hijacked. The crashes may have been the result of a suicide mission.
All right, we're going to go to a witness that's on the ground. His name is Jeremy Fox. Jeremy, can you tell us what you know, what you've seen since 9 o'clock this morning? Jeremy, you're on live.
Hello?
Jeremy, can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me?
This is Nicholas.
Hi, Nicholas. I'm sorry. Nicholas, you're on live, WB11 Morning News. Can you just tell us what you are seeing and witnessing, and where are you?
I'm in my house right now. I'm looking out the window. After the first explosion, I was just looking at the first tower, and I was just like, wow, I was staring at it for a few minutes. And then I seen the second airplane. It was kind of close up to the building, and it looked like it really did know which way it wanted to go, and it crashed into the second Twin Tower building and caused a massive explosion. And I was just like, it was just completely stunning. I'm still hearing like little explosions all around, like around my block, but I don't know what's really going on. But it was definitely a second airplane.
What kind of explosions are you hearing? Do you know?
Just little like dooms. I don't know if maybe that could be like results from the building, but
right. Nicholas, can you just tell us exactly where you're located? Obviously, you're not in. Where are you in the vicinity of the World Trade Center?
Well, I'm in the Lower East Side of Manhattan.
Lower East Side of Manhattan, and you heard this? Did you hear the plane flying low? Can you tell us?
Well, no, not really. After the first boom, I just heard the explosion.
All right.
I didn't really think nothing of it, and then I just went to the window and I just saw the plane coming, towards the building.
Nicholas, what's the reaction in your neighborhood? You're right there. You're very close to it. What are people saying? What are their reactions?
Well, a lot of people on the ground don't even seem to notice because, I don't know, I guess the buildings are hindering their view.
Yes.
But I guess from the result in the hallway, I heard a lot of doors slamming and a lot of people were speaking in Spanish and, screaming and everything. So I don't exactly know if everybody is informed. Right now, the channel is like Channel 11 isn't working on my TV, or none of the other channels are working, as a matter of fact.
And that's because a lot of the transmitters are off the World Trade Center, and that's part of the problem.
The communication.
But the communication, yeah.
I also see a lot of people on the roofs, like, looking at it now. A lot of people going to the roof.
Can you explain to us, when you saw that second plane come in, did you get a good look at it? Can you describe to us what the plane looked like?
Well, I was in the Air Force before, so I don't really exactly know what type of plane it was, but I know it was a black plane. It looked like a fighter jet.
It looked like a fighter jet.
It looked like a fighter jet. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
It was traveling extremely fast, so it definitely looked like it knew where it was going. It didn't look like it blew a thruster. It didn't look like, you know, something happened, like a malfunction. It definitely looked like it knew where it wanted to go.
How large was that plane? Could you tell?
Wow, it was maybe, wow, it was pretty big. And looking from my window, it's a pretty good distance. It's probably a good 30 miles away from the Twin Towers.
What went through your mind when you saw this going on?
Nothing, yo. It was just like, wow. I can't believe I'm actually seeing this in New York City, you know? For this to actually happen, and it's still smoking.
Right. Now we're showing you, as we talk to you, Nicholas, we're showing a shot now of the second plane circling around. And as we see it, it actually goes around the back of our view and seems to go through the building. It actually goes through the building, and you can see the second attack on the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center.
Can you describe that second explosion? Because when we were watching it, it was absolutely breathtaking. Did you hear a boom?
Definitely. I heard a loud explosion. I seen the building crash in, and all I seen was like a big mushroom cloud of fire and debris and smoke just totally rise up, and it was just like in levels. You seen the windows explode going down one by one, kind of, and it was just kind of like amazing in a way, but it's very shocking to see. I mean, you don't expect this kind of thing to happen every day in the Lower East Side.
Absolutely not. Nowhere in New York or even in this country. I don't think we've witnessed
slow-moing
anything.
this,
This is a slow-mo shot of the second plane to hit Tower 1 of the World Trade Center.
I was watching news earlier about the spy plane that crashed. Do you think that's maybe has something to do with this, or maybe they're tied together?
It's unclear right now, but we slow-mo this, and it did look like it went through, or partially through.
Right.
All right, we're going to go to,
we have another caller right now.
Well,
actually, you know, stay with us for a minute. Nicholas, can you stay with us for one more minute?
Sure, definitely.
All right. What are you seeing now in the aftermath from your view?
Well, from my view, the smoke is going left from my window. A lot more people on the roofs than before. I'm just seeing, well, from my window, I could see little chunks of debris coming down. I'm just seeing chaos. It's just unbelievable.
All right. Nicholas, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
All right, Lynn, we're going to go to Pat Kelly with the Office of Emergency Management in Westchester. Pat?
Yes.
Can you tell us what is going on? What is the very latest that you're hearing, sir?
What we're doing in Westchester is we're mobilizing in Westchester because we're assuming we're going to be backfilling and assisting in New York City. So we're preparing all of our fire, EMS, and emergency management people. We're opening our EOC, and a county executive staying on top of what we may be doing to assist New York with this tragedy.
Mm-hmm. We know that you work in situations like this. What's the first thing that you tell people?
Situations like this, as much as you prepare, you can never prepare for something like this. I know the fire, the EMS, the emergency management people prepare for fires in large buildings, but something of this magnitude and something of this quick and over such a large area, there's no real way to prepare. You just drop back onto what you've trained for. You go and you try to assist the people as best you can, and they're going to use up their resources real quickly. New York City's got a lot of resources, but an incident like this is going to tax it to the maximum, so they're going to be wanting assistance from most everyone they can. So that's why we in Westchester, the county executive has ordered us to take and be prepared to go down and assist them.
All right, Pat, this is a huge building. We're talking about a building 101 stories.
110 stories.
110 stories high. Tell us what you think could be going on at this moment inside that building, what you think the situation is like since you deal with emergencies like this.
Yes, having worked in the fire service for 26 years and dealing with tall buildings, at best it's chaos. People that are on the fire floors, above the fire floors, are trying to get out. People are trying to get down. Fire departments are trying to get up to assist the people getting out and to mitigate the problem. Yet again, I'm sure in the back of their mind they're thinking, okay, is this the first wave of something that's going on? But they're going to go in and try to put the fire, or at least save as many people as they can, and then work on this. This is going to be a process that's going to go on for days. Buildings like this that have been on fire, they'll go on for days before they even get to getting them out. The biggest thing now is life safety and getting people out of that building that they can at the moment.
All right, thank you, Patrick. We're going to change now, switch gears. We're going to go to President Bush, who has a statement at this moment.
May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you very much.
All right, the president taking a moment of silence, obviously.
Obviously taking a moment of silence. He was in Sarasota, Florida. That's President Bush. He was reading to children in a classroom around 9:05 when his chief of staff, Andrew Card, whispered into his ear. Apparently, the president paused for a moment, was obviously very stunned.
Yeah, they say he was visibly shaken by it and said that he would talk about it later. I'm sure he's got to be prepped as to what happened. All of us just stunned by what happened just after 8 o'clock this morning. The Twin Towers of the World Trade Center apparently under attack by 2 airplanes.
Just to give you some background on the World Trade Center, the World Trade Center is a large complex of 5 buildings consisting of 2 110-story towers. Now, there are 2 10-story buildings on the concourse. The towers and the concourse were completed in 1973. Each tower is 1,350 feet tall. It is second in height only to the Chicago Sears Tower. We're talking about people who work in the building. Just to give you some idea, the World Trade Center complex has 240 elevators, right. Lynn.
That's right.
48 other elevators that are just for the control room. And of course, what Melinda was saying, if you are in the building, you know, firefighters urge people to use the stairwell, not the elevators.
Do not
get
open
to the
windows.
ground.
Exactly.
Do not open the windows. It causes a funnel effect that just circulates the smoke into the building, making it just a tougher fight to get out. And that's what it is right now. It is a fight to get out of this building for a lot of people.
You can only imagine the panic inside that building at this moment. Now we're going to take you back. This is a picture once again of the second plane that just crashed through the first tower of the World Trade Center. We're going to replay that for you. Here it is, the plane coming in to the right of your screen. And it flies apparently through the back of the building and crashes all the way through. You're about to see it now. There it goes. And you can see it come out on the other side, at least the flames coming out on the other side.
In Washington, officials say the FBI was investigating reports of a plane hijacking before the crash. There were no immediate word on injuries or fatalities in the twin disaster, which happened shortly before 9 this morning. Then around 9:18, the second tower was struck by bombers. Obviously, according to Nicholas, one of the witnesses that we spoke to on the phone, it was loud, it came in low. After it hit, there was lots of debris that was falling on the ground, and there again, you're watching the plane.
And also, we just saw President Bush speaking. He called it, quote, an apparent terrorist attack on our country. And you're looking at that attack unfold before your very eyes.
You know, Lynn, we saw this happen back in 1993, and a lot of people who saw it happen for the first time, a lot of people who experienced it, never thought it would happen again. Never. We prepare for these things. We prepare for New York City, which to many is the center of the UN, for one.
Right.
We've got the Empire State Building. We've got the World Trade Center. We've got so many landmark buildings that are so pivotal to the United States. We have the Statue of Liberty. Liberty Island is just across the river there.
But this houses many government offices, and it also is a communication center. Many people broadcast from the World Trade Center. So this serves a point to a terrorist who would try to make a point, I would assume. This, again, the second apparent terrorist attack on the World Trade Center. The other one we've been talking about back in 1993. That was a shock to the world. This even more incredible. And you're looking now at pictures of those who were convicted in that attack.
Okay, we're going to go to Harvey Kushner, who's a terrorism expert. Harvey, can you talk to us about what's going on? Obviously, President Bush coming out and saying that, and the FBI saying that they do believe that this is some sort of terrorist attack.
Well, you know, when you have something as serious as this, people sometimes like to reserve judgment, but they must have some type of information which leads them to believe that this is in fact not an accident, but you know, an act of terrorism. Because considering if you look out your windows in the studio, if you can, look how clear it is. Look at the trade towers. One plane possibly going off track, but not two. Yeah. So it seems from the scenario that people have witnessed and from, probably intelligence gathering sources that this is a, viable possibility.
Dr. Kushner, you were involved in the first attack. You worked on...
I was not involved in the attack.
Worked on probably the aftermath of it, who was responsible. Tell us what you did do in that.
I was involved really in the civil litigation against the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey for not doing the due diligence on the ground, protecting the B2 level in the trade towers, allowing a truck in this case, to park with explosives. But this scenario, which is unfolding before our eyes here, is something that I couldn't even have written. Nobody would have thought that this would have been possible. That if in fact it is a terrorist attack, that somebody would be able to take a plane, supposedly one a jet and the other a smaller plane.
All right, we hate to cut you off,
Sure.
Dr. Kushner, but stay on the line if you will. We understand there is another plane heading for the World Trade Center, and there is a report that they may attempt to shoot it down.
Gotcha.
Continue to watch, stay on the line, tell us what your thoughts are right now.
Got it.
Dr. Kushner, we also want to tell you all bridges and tunnels obviously closed at this point.
Right.
Obviously, this is a preemptive strike to secure what they can secure for the police department, the terrorism squad. The Office of Emergency Management, what do they do in situations like this when it is absolute chaos?
Well, we played tabletop exercises. We painted scenarios. We went through scenarios of these types of events happening with a biological weapon. But I know of none that has taken really seriously the possibility of attack by aircraft in New York City. This was something that never was ruled out. But to be prepared for such a monumental occurrence is very difficult. Now, I could assure the people they shouldn't panic, those who were listening and heard the report, that if anybody is prepared for this type of a tragedy, New York City is indeed. And certainly, I would imagine, as we speak, the federal authorities, including the Air Force, the Army, are ready. And if, in fact, another plane is within the area of New York City, they're going to make a decision and to take the plane out.
Are you as stunned as most of us watching this at this point?
Well, yes, I am, because I could tell you, I've dabbled in the past with the thoughts of writing my memoirs or doing a novel, and I couldn't have come up with a doomsday scenario like this one. I mean, this is just off the page in terms of the planning that went into this, and just the nerve that somebody would have the temerity to take on the United States at the heart of the symbol of the United States is beyond belief. We've heard from time to time significant threats issued. Just the other day, the United States, the State Department issued a threat that Americans in Japan be aware of the possibility of an attack. But, nobody, I don't think anybody in the American government thought that, in fact, something like this could happen and would happen in New York City.
And we're looking at these pictures and they're just amazing, but we're forgetting that there are probably people in these buildings, innocent victims.
Absolutely. When you think in terms of the emergency services that are going to have to deal with people at the level, in terms of the trade tower, it's monumental. Then on top of that, this is going to have a psychological effect on people living in New York City that is going to be beyond belief. You're going to think of the shock that people who witness this firsthand will live in the area in the upcoming days. No matter how this turns out, if it turns out to be an act of terrorism, even worse. But even if it turns out to be an accident, the psyche of New Yorkers after September 11th, it'll never, ever be the same. And it's going to be very difficult to recover normalcy after an event such as this. It goes beyond what we, those of us who report in the media and yourself have seen or could conjure up. You want to pinch yourself and say, is this really happening?
Right. Dr. Kushner, you said that you did have interaction with some of the victims of the last bombing, the families thereof, at the World Trade Center. What can you tell us? What did they go through? What did they experience at that time that some of the people today might be experiencing?
Well, they went through post-traumatic shock syndrome. I mean, these people literally were at ground zero at the B2 level, and it just actually wrecked their lives. They were never the same after. It caused not only physical problems, but certainly mental problems, sleepless patterns, waking up in the middle of the night, revisiting what occurred. I was talking to a police officer at the Port Authority who was just catapulted across his office during the bombing. He was left physically damaged for life, but the psychological scars were just traumatic. I knew many people who worked in the trade towers who wouldn't go back in the building, who wouldn't go back into tall buildings after that. So you could imagine now with this that not only do you have an attack, the vulnerability from underground, which everybody understood, you could park a car, but now something falling out of the air. You know, this is just off the map.
Dr. Kushner, the AP is now reporting that the first plane may have been hijacked after takeoff from Boston. It's 9:42 for those of you who are joining us now and looking at this eerie and ominous sight of the two towers of the World Trade Center engulfed in smoke, black smoke billowing. This is not a joke. This is very real. What's happening here? Where do we go from this point? How do we recoup?
I think, you know, people, all of us stunned, shocked, and especially the latest information that just came over that Sukanya was telling you, that apparently the first plane to hit the first tower was actually apparently hijacked from Boston.
And Dr. Kushner, I don't know if you saw that video of this.
I did see the video.
Did you see the video of the second?
I did.
Obviously flying low, obviously a big-sized plane that hit into the second tower. From your perspective, sir, does this look intentional?
Yes. You know, I have to say this without, you know, fanning the flames of hysteria. As I said to people this morning, if you look outside, it's a clear day. You could see forever. Those twin towers are just monumental. There's nothing of size near them. For a pilot to be that off in the airspace and to go into one of the towers the way that plane did, and the second one, has to indicate to me that it was more than just, you know, an error or an accident.
Well, the president actually was before our screens just a short time ago, and he said, quote, "This is an apparent terrorist attack on our country." So.
Well, you know, whenever you have a plane tragedy, certainly like TW-800 or others, immediately, you know, your federal authorities, your intelligence gathering authorities go to work instantaneously to try to deal with the situation. And certainly for the president to come out and say that as quickly as he did indicates to me that they have some reason to believe that this couldn't have happened statistically by chance, that this was a purposeful event.
Dr. Kushner, we don't want to disturb you, but we just got unconfirmed reports that there is a bomb at the Pentagon and that a plane, unconfirmed reports, that a plane has hit the Pentagon as well, sir. In all respects...
Is that unconfirmed?
This is unconfirmed reports at this time. The AP is reporting this.
You know, I hate to say this on the air because you know, I'll be part of it. But whenever you have a tragedy such as this, and especially one as monumental as this, you're going to get a lot of kooks out there, a lot of people who themselves are going to phone in all sorts of crazy stories. Let's just hope and pray, really, that this is not true, that it's unconfirmed and it's just a rumor.
Okay.
But you know, that would open us up to a war on various different fronts, and that might cause, you know, a monumental response on part of this country.
Of course, it's smart to err on the side of caution, but if this report were to be true, the AP again reporting that there was a bomb at the Pentagon and a plane has crashed into it. Sir, what would be your reaction to that?
My reaction would be that it's an open war. I mean, you know, literally, terrorists do these types of things, and they have the capabilities of doing them. But consider the targets, consider what's at stake. This would be something that the United States in modern times hasn't been visited with.
All right, we just got another word in that the West Wing of the White House has been evacuated, and that the airports, local airports, have been closed.
Along with bridges and tunnels, and of course the New York Stock Exchange. Basically, Lower Manhattan is being evacuated at this point, especially the area surrounding the World Trade Center.
I would imagine that our airport's going to be closed for the next couple of days.
Can you talk to us, how soon after the 1993 World Trade Center bombing did someone take responsibility?
They didn't take responsibility. You see, that's the misnomer. Oklahoma City, nobody took responsibility, and even the embassy bombings, no one took responsibility. In the trade, in the so-called lexicon of the terrorists today, we talk about let the target speak for itself, okay? Now, when you're talking in terms of the World Trade Center, that target has already talked.
All right,
It's
Dr.
gonna talk
Kushner,
again,
we hate to cut you off right now. We're going to come back to you. Just stay on the line.
Okay.
We're going to move into Washington right now. We've been telling you there have been reports about the Pentagon, a bomb at the Pentagon, plane crashing there. Sonia Dienst is live for us right now. What can you tell us, Sonia?
Well, this story just keeps getting more unbelievable by the moment. We do have a live picture, I believe, of the Pentagon. It has been evacuated. We're hearing reports that there was either an explosion at the Pentagon or that a plane crashed into the Pentagon. Also, the White House has been evacuated and the old executive office building next door. I do not believe those buildings have been affected by any sort of explosion or crash, but as a precaution, those two buildings have been evacuated as well. And in addition, if you're seeing the Pentagon right now, there is a fire there. Here in Washington, we are waiting for a briefing by the FAA concerning the plane crashes at the Twin Towers building and also the Pentagon episode. We also understand that the FBI is looking into the Twin Towers plane crashes, possible hijacking there. We are also waiting for President Bush. He is expected to return to Washington. He was in Sarasota, Florida this morning reading to a bunch of school children. At one point, an aide leaned over, whispered something in his ear. He became very somber and said he would have a statement in a few moments. We do have that statement by President Bush for you right now, and here's what he said.
Today, we've had a national tragedy. Two airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America.
Okay, again, that was President Bush in Sarasota, Florida, about 30 minutes ago. He is headed back to Washington, and just to recap, we've got about 3 events going on right here in the Washington area. At the Pentagon, an explosion or possibly a plane crash there. There's a fire going on. The Pentagon has been evacuated. The White House has been evacuated, and apparently the old executive office building, which is right next door to the White House, that building also has been evacuated. We are about 2 blocks from the White House and the OEOB. We're hearing sirens here, not seeing any smoke or any kind of general chaos, but you can certainly tell something's going on here in downtown Washington. Back to you.
Before what was happening in the Pentagon, how soon after, my question is, how soon after what happened at the World Trade Center did something happen in the Washington, D.C. area? Can you give us some sort of time frame?
I'm going to estimate about 30 minutes after that second plane crashed into the Twin Towers building that we started getting reports that there was a fire at the Pentagon. The Pentagon story has just started developing, so we're still getting details on what exactly happened there, but we do know that that fire is still going on, roughly, again, maybe a 30-minute time period between what happened in New York and what happened here.
All right, Sonia, you are on the streets right now of Washington. What is the mood like there?
Well, maybe my cameraman can pan over. We're starting to hear a lot of sirens. We're starting to see people down the street from us standing outside an office building. We're not sure why. We're not sure if that building has been evacuated, but the level of energy is certainly starting to pick up here as we're hearing reports again of these buildings being evacuated in the downtown area.
All right, Any other buildings that you know of being evacuated right now other than government buildings?
At this point, just the White House, the old executive office building, those are precautionary measures, and then again the Pentagon.
All right, thank you so much. We'll check in with you a little bit later.
An Associated Press reporter says the tail end of a large airliner plunged into the building. He says the smoke was billowing out of the Pentagon.
And we just want to reiterate that the AP was reporting earlier that there was a plane that was hijacked from Boston Airport. I'm presuming it's Logan Airport up there. That was the first plane to crash into the first tower of the World Trade Center, and that happened after 8 o'clock. 18 minutes later, a second plane came in to the first tower of the World Trade Center from behind, crashing through it. We can only imagine how many people were in the building at the time. No word on any casualties at this point. We haven't even begun to see the reaction from the ground. You're looking at what's happened. Again, an apparent terrorist attack, and that is what the president at this point is calling it on our country.
Lynn, as a result, all aircrafts nationwide as well have been called off. All aircrafts, no takeoffs or landings nationwide at all airports. All bridges and tunnels are closed. This is a live shot of Washington. I'm sorry, this is a tape of Washington. Reports of
an explosion of some sort at the Pentagon.
Some sort.
They're not sure whether it was another plane or actually a bomb, but they are investigating that at this point.
The Associated Press was reporting that a tail end of a large airline had plunged into that building. Right. And of course, the West Wing has also been evacuated. We're once again back live looking at this ominous and eerie shot of the World Trade Center. Two planes hit the two towers. The first plane shortly before 9, the second plane shortly, I believe, 18 minutes after, if we are correct. As a result, all bridges and tunnels are closed. All aircrafts nationwide landing.
Here it is. Here's the second plane that went into that trade tower. If you're just joining us, second plane going into the first tower of the World Trade Center. Crashing through it, you can see the fiery explosion that resulted from that. And again, countless people obviously in this building, in the other building as well. At this hour, we have no idea how many people have been evacuated, how many people still trapped in that building at this point.
And you can see smoke pouring out of the gaping holes of the upper floors of the World Trade Center. Reports that a plane had struck the 110-story building. Just to give you an idea, 2 towers, 110 stories, countless people. 1993 was the last time the World Trade Center
came under attack.
Under attack like this. We're trying to get reports from the ground. We're trying to get reports of any casualties, if there are any. At this time, it's uncertain. We spoke to several witnesses, and they do report seeing and hearing a low-flying plane that came in and hit that second tower that we witnessed. We were on the air for minutes.
It was an unbelievable sight.
My reaction was, I couldn't believe what I was watching. And I think a lot of people who are tuning in and are listening to us are not believing what they're
actually seeing. But you are seeing this country, as the president said, under attack, apparently. We are being told that the State Department is evacuating this building as well, if we got that information correct.
We're also being told that President Bush will be briefing the nation as soon as he
is briefed.
Yes, he's in Sarasota, Florida, where he was speaking to children.
And we just saw Sonia Diener live for us in Washington, where the Pentagon has come under fire. The Pentagon, apparently a plane, if you can show us that shot again, a plane crashing into, or a part of a plane crashing into the Pentagon. Obviously that has been evacuated as well as the West Wing of the White House, another building nearby.
Lynn, it's 9:55. We've been on the air since, I would say, 5 minutes after 9, around 9 o'clock, and it's been a harrowing experience for us, just kind of watching this and hearing reports, and first seeing the first tower on fire. Now you're looking at the shot of Washington, D.C., part of the Pentagon as well, upper level on fire as well.
We're also reporting that we're hearing reports that LaGuardia is being evacuated, including the tower there. The Pentagon The Pentagon you're looking at in the background right there, again, and the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. Both of these historic buildings under attack, being called terrorist attacks, obviously.
And obviously you want to notice that smoke billowing in the Washington, D.C. shot was the Pentagon in the background.
That's
the
right.
background. That's why it wasn't very apparent exactly what it was.
Okay. Now, we've had Melinda Murphy over this site for part of the broadcast, and unfortunately, the choppers are going to have to come down because LaGuardia has been evacuated, and the tower there cannot communicate. Another problem, and when you think about where a terrorist would attack, pick the site that obviously would cause the most problems, because there are many communications points in this building, many government offices in this building, and unfortunately many innocent victims in this building. 110 floors of the building, 2 towers. You can only imagine how many people are in the building trying to get out of the building. Will never be able to get out of the building at this point.
Well, Lynn, Dr. Kushner, a terrorism expert who we were talking to, was saying that the World Trade Center is sort of the heart and symbol of the United States.
Along with the Pentagon. And you have to, this was obviously no accident that the two things happened side by side, if you will, within a few minutes or maybe a half-hour span.
We're also hearing now that they're evacuating Kennedy Airport as we speak.
And all of the airports, we're told, in the areas have been shut down. And one of the reasons might be because we were told, AP first reported, that the first plane that hit the World Trade Center was a hijacked plane coming out of Boston. So you can only imagine, the casualties in that alone. It's just mind-boggling.
There are still no word on injuries or fatalities, but you could just imagine if we could see the ground, what it would look like.
And we should say that our crews are not able to get too close to this site for precautionary reasons. The police obviously keeping people as far away from it as possible, trying frantically, I'm sure, to get as many people out of the building as they possibly can at this moment.
Well, just a question, if we could on air, is there a possibility to switch to other bridges and tunnels to see if roadways are at a standstill, which I'm assuming that they are since everything has been closed and come to a standstill. So obviously there is going to be some backlog on the roadways as New York City and the United States takes precaution, closing all bridges and tunnels as well as airports. As an evacuation occurs.
Penn Station also closed. I would imagine any kind of transportation site at this point in jeopardy, people being asked not to go to public places like that. We have no idea, really,
and it's also
what the extent of this is going to be. We're looking at the first part of it, and hopefully it will not progress from here, but one never assumed that we would see what we're seeing now, so we have no idea really what might happen next.
And if we can aid those who are trying to get control of this situation, if you are at home and if you're watching this, if you can stay at home, please do. We are...
Okay, you're looking at another explosion right here. This is another explosion.
Part of the tower coming down?
Part of the Twin Tower, obviously folding.
Coming crashing down. We're watching a live...
It is right...
We're watching a live picture of this. What?
It's live. You're looking at this live. You're looking at another explosion right in the same area. Another explosion.
It's hard to tell.
That is a live picture right now. We don't know exactly what has exploded.
It looks like a building
part
collapse.
Of the building collapsed.
But it's unclear right now, Lynn, if that is the second tower.
No,
is that
both towers are standing. This is another building in the area.
It's unclear right now if both towers are standing right now because of the smoke.
The first tower has collapsed. That's what happened.
The first tower has
collapsed. There you have it. Unbelievable. Who would have ever thought we would have witnessed something like this? And the pictures speak for themselves.
Oh, you are looking at a live shot of downtown.
You are looking at devastation of downtown New York. Again, this all started just after 8 o'clock. We don't know how many people were in that tower. We don't know how many people were in both towers. You are looking at the complete wreck of this landmark building. Speechless. All right, we're going to try to show you this again. just events unfolding that you could never imagine in your worst nightmare. Beginning right after 8 o'clock this morning here in New York with the World Trade Center. Tower 1 collapsing from a plane that the FBI is now saying may have come from a hijacked plane out of Boston. Shortly after that, a second plane crashing into the first tower of the World Trade Center. Now you can see just minutes ago, the first tower collapsed completely. It looks to be demolished.
That is a 110-story building that collapsed to the ground. And we're going to
show it to you
this
one more time. This is what you just saw if you were watching just a few minutes ago, and if you're just joining us, the first tower of the landmark World Trade Center, no longer. This is what it's become.
We're slow-moing this, so obviously you can see it's sort of imploding. If I can say that it is imploding,
yes.
It is imploding and coming to the ground 110 stories.
In front of our eyes.
Obviously, our thoughts are that...
With the people who may have been inside at the time this happened, and how, and who, and why.
Absolute devastation. You're looking at a live picture of Lower Manhattan here.
The landscape just completely
vanished.
Gone. Oh. And what a beautiful, clear, incredible day this started out as. And it has turned into a day of just complete devastation.
And of course, Lynn, a lot of people living in the surrounding boroughs, I'm sure because it is such a clear day, can stand outside
and see it
and see what's unfolding before our very eyes as the two of us are watching this.
And everyone with us here in the studio, it's just incredulous because no one would imagine that this could happen anywhere, let alone here in New York City. We're also being told that, again, at this point, most public places of transportation have been shut down. All airports shut down. Penn Station shut down.
Also, other government institutions, including the Treasury and the State Department, are being evacuated in Washington, D.C. Paul Begala, according to the AP, a Democratic consultant, said he witnessed an explosion near the Pentagon. He described it as a huge fireball, a huge orange fireball. He said another witness told him that a helicopter exploded. We are going to go once again
to the explosion that just occurred. And this again is the first tower of the World Trade Center. Twin Towers. It's folding before your eyes.
We first reported to you that there were reports of a first plane that may have been hijacked from Boston. Now we're hearing that that second plane may have. These are reports now. This is unconfirmed, that this report is saying that the second plane may have come from Newark Airport. And as a result of that second plane, there was sort of a, wow, look at that close-up shot to the utter chaos that is kind of on the ground here.
Unbelievable. Then that's the first shot we've been able to get close to the scene on the ground. You can see complete chaos. We've got right now Jeremy Fox on the line. He is an eyewitness. He lives in the vicinity. Jeremy, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Tell me what you're seeing right now.
Everything is white outside my window. What happened, I saw the second building blow, and it just crumbled down, and I saw the core of the building slowly crush to the ground, fall to the ground. Out my window now, I can see nothing. Everything is white. What I saw before was people running in front of the hospital, running all over on the streets, running away from the west side, because I live on the east side, close to the FDR. Everything outside is pure white. You can't see a thing. I live across the yard from me, about 100 yards, is another building. I can't see 2 feet in front of me. I had to close my windows because it's so smoky down here.
What are the people around you saying? What's the reaction around you in that neighborhood?
Pure horror, it seems like. It seems like people are running away for their lives, like they don't know what's going on. Pure confusion. I myself, I don't know. I live so close. I'm like, I can't imagine what just happened. I'm like...
Where do you live, Jeremy, for the folks who are just tuning in?
I live on Gold Street, right across from the Beekman Hospital, where they're taking all the patients.
Jeremy,
I saw them bring a lot of patients in before.
Jeremy, obviously, can you please tell us, I mean, we were watching the tower go down. Can you please describe to us, on the ground, what did that look like?
I'm not on the ground. I'm on the 26th floor of a building across the way. Right now, you can see nothing outside. When it went off, the second building, you saw an explosion, and then you just saw a humongous cloud of smoke go up, and you saw the building start to fall down, and then you saw the core of the building just start to disintegrate into itself. There's ashes on my terrace everywhere. You can't see a thing. The smell is horrible. I smell smoke everywhere.
Did it look like an implosion that internally, was it that when the plane crashed, I mean, was there another explosion inside that vicinity of that area, almost like we're speculating here, possibly a bomb?
I couldn't, the second building, both buildings were just burning, and like they constantly burning. And then right below the left building, the one without the news tower, the satellite tower, it just looked like an explosion below the where it was burning, and then it just came down.
All right, Jeremy, you were telling us before that you saw the ambulances going to the hospital. Describe what that was like.
It was horrific. There were men in, they had beds lined up outside the emergency room waiting for patients. They were bringing them in cars, not in ambulances anymore, as well as ambulances. They were people coming in on stretchers. They just looked, shaken and horrible. I mean, I'm on the 26th floor and I looked at it. Now you cannot see 2 inches in front of your face if you're on the street right now. People downstairs must be in pure havoc. I mean, you can't see anything outside.
Jeremy, you must be fearing for your own life at this point. You're so close to it.
I'm very nervous. I'm not happy about, this at all. I'm scared for everyone around and involved. I can't imagine what the destruction that just caused for people. I'm very nervous. Everyone in my family, as you can hear, my phone is ringing, is calling to make sure I'm okay. I'm scared as could be.
You were reporting also that you're not able to get any broadcast. Is that right?
No, I'm getting your broadcast right now. I'm getting the only channel that's not coming in is Channel 9. Every other channel is coming in. You're coming in on WB11, and you can see the smoke, and the right building is still burning.
Jeremy, what's the first thing you saw earlier?
The first thing I heard was I felt a boom next to my window, and that woke me up and got me out of bed. And I heard ambulances and cars coming, and I went to look out my window, and I was watching and I was on the phone with one of your news staff reporters. As the smoke is starting to clear, I'll walk out on my terrace. Hold on. Oh my God, there's debris everywhere. It's horrible. You can't see. There's white powder everywhere. On my terrace, on the ground, everywhere. This is like a war zone, I assume. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Is it tough for you even to breathe?
Now it is. I'm going back into my apartment.
All right.
Then I was watching, and as I was watching, the plane must have come from the other side because I saw the second building blow. It looked more like an outward explosion because the plane came from the other side, and I saw that pure explosion and took pictures of it. Now there's another.
What was going through your mind while you were doing all of this, Jeremy?
The horror that people are going through right now, the families that are losing people right now, and there's another plane. No, there's a helicopter. The horror that families are going through, that people are going through right now, the confusion, that people don't understand what's going on right now. I don't understand what's going on right now. The insecurity that I feel right now, and that I'm not around my loved ones right now, and how horrible for people who work in the World Trade Center and who have family in the World Trade Center. And I pray to God that they evacuated that building in time to get rid of all those to get those people and save lives. And the massive damage that building falling down must have done to everyone.
I think we're all feeling the same emotions at this point. We're being joined now by Jim Watkins from the Channel 11 News at 10. Jim, were you watching this at home? Was this a shock to you as well when you first got up?
Well, there's a sense that my wife came and woke me up and told me that we were getting a call from our news director saying, this has happened, you must go in. And there's a sense that I'm sure everybody is experiencing, whether they were asleep or whether they were awake when they first heard it, that no, that must be a mistake. That's simply not possible. That's worse than the worst case scenario we'd ever pictured before. So I jumped in a cab. I was coming down Fifth Avenue to our studios here on 42nd Street, and just like you're hearing from everybody else, people are standing out on the street. You can see actually down Fifth Avenue there's almost a corridor looking straight at the smoking building, and this was before the tower collapsed. People standing there just with mute, dumb expressions on their face.
Incredulous.
They're incredulous. It's almost as if we're living through some sort of a terrible dream here this morning. But
well, we are under attack, and I don't think any of us in our lifetimes have ever witnessed anything quite like this. You read about things like this in other places, but we never think about it happening in our backyard. When it happened in '93, when the World Trade Center came under attack then, we thought, okay, there are a lot of safeguards in place.
Right.
This can never happen again. And here you're seeing the Pentagon right now. The Pentagon right now, live shot, on fire. Horrific sight.
I understand also that perhaps this has been caused by yet another hijacked plane.
Another hijacked plane that's crashed into the Pentagon.
As well.
That's right.
There's so many aspects of this, everyone, that we just don't have any idea about. How are the planes hijacked? What was this? How in the world did control of the planes go to the
Right. But what we're hearing
terrorists?
is, since you're just joining us, we're hearing that the first plane was hijacked out of Boston, and that was the first plane that hit the second tower of the World Trade Center. The second plane, we are told, was hijacked out of Newark Airport, and that was the one that we experienced here live. We saw the explosion coming around the back side of the first tower of the World Trade Center and just went through it. And just minutes ago, right here again live, if you were watching, you saw that tower fold, crushed right before our very eyes. And we can only imagine the devastation in the area, the people who may have been trapped in that building and in the second tower that is still standing.
And we should mention also that the towers, of course, are dependent upon one another for their structure. Take a look at the tower collapsing here. This is going to be
just an insidious sight.
Words cannot describe what must be going on the ground below. We don't have any idea yet what the evacuation procedures, what the triage procedures were going on. Perhaps there were people directly below there. You have to think somehow that emergency personnel were organized down below. Of course, all this is going to have to wait till later on. But now the concern is the second tower going to go down, since the first one is no longer there to support it structurally anymore?
And there are unconfirmed reports that that may be about to happen, and we pray against it, but we will keep watching. The New York Stock Exchange closed. Buildings in the area have been evacuated. All transportation locations, the airports, and I would imagine in most of the area, closed down. Penn Station evacuated. People, we're hearing reports of people, just as you were saying, not knowing what is going on. Many of them have lost their broadcast capacity because some of that comes from the World Trade Centers. Total confusion. What is this? How did it happen? Why did this happen?
The also should mention, Lynn, that the towers or the tunnels and the bridges are closed as well. And I want to tell you, from just having been out there a moment ago, if you're in Manhattan, just don't go outside.
No.
Don't try to take any kind of a vehicle, any kind of public transportation. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a matter of time before some of the public transportation is grounded as well.
Exactly. And if you're looking at this right now, and if you live in the area, we are being told that you should not go outside, you should not breathe in fumes, because some of these fumes could be noxious. Obviously, that's not what people would first react to, but you have to take care. Right now you're looking at a live shot of the Pentagon burning. Another plane crashed into the Pentagon shortly after the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center came under fire from two what appear to be terrorist plane attacks, planes that were hijacked, one again from Boston Airport, the other from Newark Airport. This is again the live shot of the Pentagon. Back here live to New York City, you're only looking at one remaining tower of the World Trade Center. The first is no longer. It has crashed to the ground. It's collapsed, and now there is fear that the second tower may do the same.
The airlines, the FAA, has issued its first ever in this country national ground stop, meaning all airports are closed. Here's the second plane hitting the second tower.
And it's horrifying. As you watch, it comes right through that tower from the back, and the fiery explosion. And we have no idea how many people were in that building at the time that this happened. No idea how many had been evacuated, no idea what the casualties might be on the ground, but here's the tower once again collapsing, and this happened maybe 15 minutes ago. And there it is, crumbling to the ground. Unbelievable. Now, we had somebody on the phone just recently talking about people being taken to area hospitals, and he was saying it was beyond ambulances at this point. People were being taken in cars to hospitals. So Obviously, the damage is great. The casualties, many
and of course,
there.
now the problem in Lower Manhattan and throughout much of the city is traffic is so terrible. It's going to be very difficult for emergency vehicles and ambulances to do what they have to do. But
and the media being kept away from this, so we can't get too close. Our vantage point is not that great, but we are going to be talking to people who can see this. Again, we were talking to a young man named Jeremy Fox, and his reaction was, what is going on? And that has to be the reaction to most New Yorkers who are not tuned in to what's happening.
Well, here in our station just a few moments ago, one of our crew members came into the room where I was. He was in tears, and he said that his fiancée is in a building that is located down in that area right there. So many New Yorkers are going through exactly this right now.
Okay, we've got Jamie Fox back on the line. He is the witness we were talking about. Jamie, can you hear?
Jeremy, yes.
Jeremy, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Everyone's walking around on the streets downstairs. They're not running anymore. They're just walking like they don't know what to do anymore. I'm back out on my terrace trying not to breathe too deeply. There's white powder just covers everything. People are walking outside the hospital, just walking. They don't know what to do anymore, I think. Everything is covered. The second building is burning. Everyone's running around, just walking actually, not even running, in utter confusion as to what's going on, just crossing the streets of Gold Street, and up to the FDR, to the East River, from which the World Trade Centers are on the West Side Highway, as everyone knows. It's just covered in white powder. Everything is covered, and there's just a smoke everywhere that's starting to clear and starting to pass.
And Jeremy, you were saying that you were taking pictures. You've chosen to stay. Why?
This is my home. I don't know where to go. I mean, I can't leave. I mean, I have nowhere else to go. I could leave and go somewhere in this neighborhood, but I can't get out of this neighborhood. I live here. Mm-hmm. I have no other possibilities. I'm very nervous. I would pray to God that they wouldn't bring down these residential buildings that I live in. But I couldn't imagine the damage that those buildings have done, that dropping the World Trade Center has done. I'm still wondering what brought that building down.
Well, our reports are that a hijacked plane, a plane that was hijacked.
A third plane brought that one down?
No, the second one was a collapse of the building, and that might have been structural because of all the damage incurred by the explosion, by the plane crashing into it. There is some talk that there is a possibility now of the second tower also crashing to the ground because the two towers apparently were interdependent on each other for stability. So eyes are focused now on this tower. Hopes are that it will stay intact, but we are not certain yet.
I mean, I pray to God that all the families of people, that they've evacuated everyone out of these buildings, and all the families, it's so horrible. I mean,
Jeremy, are you getting any kind of sense at all of what the situation might be there at the base,
no, I'm
of
not.
the towers?
I'm east of the base. What I can see now is I can see the top of the building, the right building with the tower, with the satellite tower. Excuse me, is billowing smoke. Downstairs, people are just walking on. I'm looking down onto Gold and Fulton Street. Excuse me, I'm outside, and I'm looking up to the FDR, and people are actually walking on the FDR. They must be evacuating everything and having people walk on the FDR, and people are walking around in utter confusion, and just it doesn't seem like they know what to do or where to go. I mean, because there is nowhere to go.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to come back to you.
Okay.
We can just tell you now that the plane that first crashed into the second tower was a 767 Boeing plane, and it was out of Boston. It was apparently hijacked from Boston. That was the first crash, and that happened just after 8 o'clock. The second crash that we've showed you quite a few times, and we'll probably show that to you again, came from a hijacked plane apparently from Newark, New Jersey. And here it is, you can see it again. This is the one that caused the most devastation because you're going to see what happens next. The plane goes from the back of the tower all the way through it, the fire explosion that happens after that, and then not more than maybe a half hour to 40 minutes later, the entire tower just collapses.
And we're getting some indication from Melinda Murphy in our helicopter. It looks to her, at least, as if the second tower appears to be perhaps buckling or leaning, and I'm going to...
Debris actually falling from the building. And you can imagine, the people in the area, what must be going through their minds at this point? Many of them, again, not knowing, not having access to television or radio, and they have no idea. All they're seeing is this fiery mass in the sky, and all kinds of evacuations, people being taken to hospitals, mass confusion at this point in Lower Manhattan.
And of course, it's just such enormous structures. They are literally blocks high, and blocks around the structures are going to be affected by the collapse and the threatened collapse of the second one. We are just beginning, everyone, to scratch the surface here of trying to understand what the damage could be.
And while we're looking at these pictures here in New York, the Pentagon also under attack, if we will. Just after this happened, a plane crashed apparently into the Pentagon in Washington. There you see it there. You're looking at the aftermath of that now. The Pentagon has been evacuated, as has the West Wing of the White House and another building nearby. So all kinds of explosions on the East Coast of our country, both in Washington and New York City. And again, there's so much to these tragedies that what is really shocking is that we're being told that these were hijacked planes.
Just thinking about the loss of life on the planes alone.
Exactly. Kamikaze hijackers who took the lives of not only themselves, but all the innocent people along with them, both in the buildings and in those planes.
Well, obviously this is the government, all local civic disaster services is on the highest alert possible across the country.
FBI is involved, absolutely.
Once again, we should mention that wherever you may be in this country, you're not going to be flying out of any airport. All airports are closed. No planes are taking off. Any planes that are in the air are being ordered to land. The highest security clearances, the highest levels of security are being ordered across the country.
Okay, there are also now unconfirmed reports of anonymous planes in Virginia, right around the airspace of Virginia. So they're focusing their attention now on that as well. We have no idea, obviously no idea, who might be responsible for this. No one has claimed responsibility, and we have no idea of the magnitude of the human casualties. We can only imagine as this happened during the start of the workday here in New York and in Washington, D.C.
And you'll remember back in 1993, Lynn, at the attack of the World Trade Center then, that later on, as the entire scope of the plot began to be learned, that they believed they had plans, that they believed they had uncovered plans where terrorists were then waiting for people to flee Manhattan and bomb possibly the George Washington Bridge. Right. Or the Holland or Lincoln tunnels.
Now you're looking at
for that reason, everything is closed out in and out of the city.
And this is a shot you're seeing right there of the earlier attack back in '93 of the World Trade Center. 6 people died in that attack. There were a few people who went to trial for that, still serving time for that, convicted of that. And the message after that was that there is more to come. We've heard rumors of that. We've been on alert for that for several years. And a lot of precaution has been taken, but there is no precaution that you can take in airspace, obviously, from what we've seen. 2 planes crashing right into the upper floors of the World Trade Towers. The first one, the upper floors. The second plane crashing into the center.
Here's one more update from Washington, Lynn. The AP is reporting that a car bomb has exploded outside the State Department.
This is live Washington that you're seeing right now. All right,
we don't know exactly what the location is there, but emergency vehicles perhaps heading to the State Department. Once again, reports that a car bomb has exploded outside the State Department. No word at all yet on what the extent of the damage would be from that.
And President Bush on the air live a little while ago saying that this country is under a terrorist attack, and that's obviously exactly what is happening here. We don't know the full scope of it yet. We are watching it unfold as you do.
Well, yeah, nobody knows the full scope of it, even the people at the highest levels. President Bush, who is in Sarasota, Florida, I believe visiting a school. At the time he was notified of this, has sent his sympathies to any people impacted by this tragedy. He's ordered a full-scale investigation to, quote, hunt down the folks who committed this act.
All right, we were speaking to a terrorist expert. I don't know if we still have the doctor on the line. Dr. Kushner, can you hear? I'm sorry, he has left us for the moment. Hopefully we'll get back to him. We do have crews on the way to the scene, but we've been telling you the problem with most broadcasting in and around this area is that we're not being allowed to get close to the scene for obvious reasons. But we do have Melinda Murphy in the area. She is in Chopper 11. She's been reporting all morning that there's debris coming out of the building, and it looks like the building is actually buckling now, and this is the second tower of the World Trade Center, the first tower completely demolished at this point.
If you are just joining us, this is not some sort of a bad dream you're looking at right there. That is the World Trade Center -1 tower. The second tower collapsed earlier, about an hour after the impact from a jetliner, which was apparently deliberately flown into it.
Yes, and from a hijacked plane, from what we're told. Again, the first plane crash, the plane hijacked, according to the FBI, according to AP, out of Boston. The second, right out of Newark Airport. Okay, we've got Sukanya Krishna now. Sukanya, what can you tell us?
Lynn, we're on the street here on 42nd and 2nd Avenue just to give you an idea of what's going on. It seems like it's rush hour right now. You can see we're at a phone booth. A lot of people trying to get in touch with their loved ones. I was one of those on a cell phone, sir. Were you able to get service with that?
No.
As a result of no service, you've got people that are just trying to get in touch with anyone who is downtown. Ma'am, can you just be careful? As you can see, some people obviously very emotional here. If you can just take a look over here. People trying to figure out what is going on. The whole consensus is out on the street. Not a lot of people really understand what is happening on the streets of New York. If you can take a look, a lot of people have come up to me, asked me questions. Do you know what's going on? A lot of people are unaware, but what we can tell you is that a lot of businesses are letting people go. If you could take a look down here on 2nd Avenue, a lot of the people are coming this way. Also, you're hearing fire engines, you're hearing police trucks, just a slew of activity as people are trying to make a mad dash. But the problem is, as we have been notifying people, all bridges and tunnels are closed, as well as what we are seeing, a lot of buses are not in service. So at this point, if you are in Manhattan, my understanding is you should stay in Manhattan or try and stay in this vicinity because the roadways are clogged. I'm going to try and talk to some people and see if they have an idea of what's going on. Ma'am, were you let out of work early today? You're on live, Channel 11.
I was at the work. I work on 55 Water, for TD Waterhouse. We saw the whole thing.
You saw everything.
The plane hit. We saw the second plane. We saw when the thing blew up, the fire, and we lost it. Everybody just left. That was it.
Can you just tell me, you were on the ground. Tell me your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Jeanette.
Jeanette. You're obviously very emotional. Jeanette. I know. I can totally understand that. Yes, go ahead, Jim.
As you basically informed some people what happened, assuming some people had no idea what was happening, what kinds of reactions are you getting from people?
Oh, look
there
at
goes
this.
the second tower.
You're going to the second tower. You're looking at this live right now.
Okay.
Both towers now completely destroyed of the World Trade Center. You have no idea how many people may have been in those buildings. We have no idea. This is a major communication center for this city, for this country. Many government offices in those towers. Amazing video as you're watching it now. It's not video, it's live. It's right before your very eyes.
The World Trade Center is gone, ladies and gentlemen.
Both buildings collapsing from apparent terrorist attacks. And we want to just take you through this. The first explosion happened right after 8 o'clock this morning. We're being told that a plane was hijacked from Boston Airport. It flew into the second tower of the two World Trade Center towers. The second plane, coming 18 minutes later, flew into the first tower, into the middle part of that first tower. It exploded inside the building, coming from the back all the way into the front of the building. A few minutes later, here's a look at the second plane hitting. A few minutes later, there was a report in Washington that the Pentagon had been hit, and there was a report that the tail end of a plane had exploded into the Pentagon. You're looking now again at a shot that happened at about 9:15, 9:14 this morning. This is what's happening. Then after that, the first tower collapsed. You can see that. That was right around 10 o'clock, maybe a little bit before 10 o'clock. It's about to collapse, the first tower of the World Trade Center. Shortly after that, as we were saying, the second tower the tower was buckling, there was debris falling from it, and then a half hour later, this is what you saw just a few seconds ago right here live. The second tower collapses. The human toll untold right now. We have no idea how many people were in those buildings or around the buildings.
They were trapped inside.
We have no idea at this point.
What was going on down below.
We do know that the stock exchange has been closed. Buildings in the area have been evacuated. Penn Station evacuated. The airports have been shut down because of the hijackings involved. Now, we're told of the two here in New York. We were telling you earlier about the Pentagon also being under attack, and here you're seeing that now, a plane crashing into the Pentagon. The Pentagon was evacuated. The West Wing of the White House has been evacuated. Another building nearby has been evacuated, and there was just a report of a car bomb
outside the State Department
in Washington.
So some sort of grand terrorist plan is being executed here. I think what is striking is going to strike a lot of people is that there apparently was absolutely no word, no intelligence whatsoever, no forewarning whatsoever about the possibility of such an attack even being
You hear
imagined.
threats all the time, Jim, and you hear them, and you always think you're safe. You always think, okay, the FBI is on top of this. It can't happen. It will never happen here. But you can never feel too safe, apparently, from what we're watching now. We started out this day, a beautiful, clear day, and before we knew it, one tower of the World Trade Center was exploding, a plane crashing into it, a hijacked plane, of all things, a hijacked plane coming out of Boston exploding into it, and then a second one exploding into it. There you're looking at it, Washington right now. That is New York City right now. That is the leveling of the World Trade Center. The landscape will never be the same.
Never be the same in Manhattan.
Never be the same in Lower Manhattan.
That has become the landmark that has anchored the lower end of Manhattan, and it is gone today. We also just heard that all international flights coming into New York or Washington are being diverted to Canada, so they're not even letting international planes land in this country right now. Also, no planes can take off from any airport anywhere in the U.S. Planes that are currently in the air must land, but it's up to the pilot and the individual airlines whether they go on to their destination or land immediately.
And also we're told that the area around the UN has been closed off, shut down. We have no idea if there have been any threats in that area, but that has been shut down as well. It may be precautionary.
Right, the UN just a few blocks from here. We have some people over there, and hopefully we'll bring you some reports from that soon. That would certainly be a high priority target on a day such as this, and we'll bring you the latest from there as soon as we can.
It's incredible to watch. These are live pictures. Two of the country's major cities, Washington, D.C. and New York, under terrorist attack. And those were the words of the president earlier as he said, our country is under terrorist attack. We're going to be cutting to the president at some point. He's going to have a statement for us.
What you're seeing on the ground there is actually dust.
Right.
From the debris from the collapse of the towers. It looks like it's already an inch thick.
And that's all that is left of the Twin Towers at this hour. Dust. Unbelievable. Completely devastated. And again, we have no idea of the human casualties, the tolls here.
No, as I was saying before, there's just so much that we
have yet to learn.
That we still have yet to learn, both about the extent of the damage and how this even began to unfold in the first place. But it looks as if there are 1,000 nightmare stories to be told here.
I don't know if we have our eyewitness on the line still. Do we have Jeremy on the line at this point? May we speak with him again? We're going to come to him in a few minutes. We've got Sukanya Krishnan. She is live for us outside, very close to the UN. It's also been shut down at this time, the area around the UN. Sukanya, what can you tell us?
Right, Lynn, we're on 42nd and 2nd, and as you can see, there are buses, but this bus is crossing through and it's kind of blocking our way right now, but none of the buses are in service as we're speaking. We want to point out to a lot of people that there are no train service, there are no ferries, the tunnels are closed, most bridges are closed, and if you can look over here, traffic is completely being diverted from the UN, if you can get a sneak peek, because police have completely cordoned off that area as obviously the UN possibly could be another target. A lot of people are just kind of walking around unaware of what's going on. Sir, can I talk to you? Obviously, you left work early.
I was in the UN itself, and I happened to arrive just about the time that the planes did hit the World Trade Center, and it was a while before they actually evacuated the building. But now it seems that they're telling everybody to leave. They had us down in the first basement. And
what was the mode there? Were they telling people to be prepared that anything could happen at this point?
Well,
at the UN, obviously a landmark building.
At that point in the morning, it was still relatively empty because people were just coming into work. So a lot of people were blocked from coming upstairs at all. I was already upstairs, and eventually they told us to evacuate the building.
Where are you from, sir?
I'm from Mastic, Long Island.
Mastic, Long Island. And are you aware that there are no trains?
Yeah, I realize I'm stuck here now till whatever happens.
Okay. Obviously, this woman trying to get service. Are you trying to get through?
Can't. There's just like no signals. My father's in the city, but I think you can't even get out of the city at this point.
Can you tell me what's going through your mind at this point?
I'm a nervous wreck. I wanted to throw up. It's like one of those movies, like the Independence Day, when they come over and they take over the city. That's how I feel. I work up there by the window, so I had to leave.
When you heard it was happening, when you saw the first tower go down.
I'm hysterical. I have girlfriends. All my friends are in the World Trade Center on the 42nd floor. I don't know which building or if they're okay, but you know, cell phones don't work at this point.
Both towers of the World Trade Center have gone down at this point.
They crumbled?
Both have crumbled.
Insanity. Do they know who's responsible for this? Terrorists, or it's just assumptions
we
right now?
We do not know. It's just assumptions, but good luck to you. Please be safe.
Yeah, I know.
There is no way out of here if you can just stay put. And this is the problem. A lot of people are just trying to figure out what are we going to do. That's kind of why everybody's sort of approaching me. Just take a look. This has been a familiar scene. Police cars, unmarked cruisers running down the street, obviously very busy. We saw a fire engine that actually came up the opposite way on 2nd Avenue. You can tell a lot of people are trying to get cabs. Unbelievable. If you could just turn over here, if I can give you sort of a look as to what this street looks like. The bus stops are packed. People are just kind of scratching their heads, unclear of what they're going to do. This is, excuse me, ma'am, this is definitely what people are doing, trying to get in touch with their loved ones. You can see the line here for the payphone. Obviously, cell phones are not working. Let's just see if somebody is able to get through. Sir, were you able to get through on the phone?
No.
You are not able to get through?
Yeah, no, not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Who are you trying to reach?
SBS.
Yeah. Are you trying to get in touch with friends?
Friends, yeah.
Are you nervous at this point?
Yeah, I'm very nervous about this situation.
Yeah. Do you have friends that work downtown, sir?
Yes. We saw the firing and scaring, very scary.
Very scary.
Yeah.
Did you see what was going on, sir?
No, I was on the bus going to Atlantic City.
So you obviously are unaware what's going on.
I'm aware of it. I got a portable radio. They closed the bus.
What is going through your mind right now?
Terrible.
Yeah.
It's like a book, like a movie. It's like a Japanese movie coming to New York.
Ma'am, can I talk to you? You're obviously part of the United Nations. Were you one of the few people that were evacuated from the United Nations?
They started screaming and said, everybody leave the building immediately. We were actually part of the Tribune violinists. We were all about performing. He had his violin up ready to play, and they just came running and they said, clear.
Did you know at that point what was going on, what has been happening since 9 o'clock this morning?
Someone called my cell phone and said something happened at the World Trade something. And
do you know that both towers of the World Trade Center have crashed?
We were actually one of the fathers of the performers worked down in that building. Had we not been there, he would have been in the building. So he was just devastated, and it's awful.
Are you? I don't know, Lynn and Jim, I don't know if you can hear the utter chaos that's kind of going on here. Once again, if you could take a look at 2nd Avenue, which is the main access that would go down to World Trade, to Lower Manhattan, you can see that ambulances are sort of racing down. And
you mentioned also, Sekandi, that we're still a long way outside here from the World Trade Center, so we can only imagine what the scenario is there.
We are, but just to give you an idea, 2nd Avenue has virtually clear from my vantage point right now. 2nd Avenue past 34th Street looks like it is absolutely clear, that they have cleared the roadways, and that way emergency officials can get to where they are going. The whole thing is where they're detouring traffic right now. That's the question, and a lot of people have a lot of answers, Jim, and obviously a lot of uncertainty on the streets, people trying to get cabs, people trying to get home, and
people trying to contact their loved ones. Thank you so much, Sekanya. We will get back to you in just a little bit.
Okay.
You know, we're forgetting one thing today is primary day.
Election day.
It's election day, and all of the polling places, we are told, have now been closed. And you are looking at a live picture of the devastation of Lower Manhattan.
You're looking where the World Trade Center
once stood.
Used to stand. And I cannot believe I'm saying those words.
Those two towers under attack earlier this morning, just after 8 o'clock. Two planes, one coming from Boston, the second plane that you're seeing now apparently hijacked out of Newark, coming around the first tower of the World Trade Center. Now that was the first tower. You're going to see the explosion. There it is going through the building. Just a little while after that, that tower collapsed. Here is the collapse right now. And this is what happened right around 10 o'clock this morning. And the two towers were interdependent structurally. So what happened next was the second tower started to buckle. Debris kept falling from it, and then eventually a half hour later, this is what happened to that tower. Completely destroyed. And again, we talk and we see the pictures, but what we don't see is what's happening in the area or inside of those buildings.
The only thing we can really know for sure is what's happening in the area is that there's almost, now you're looking at the Pentagon right now,
Right.
Obviously serious damage caused to the Pentagon. I believe there are reports there where that another plane, we assume it was a hijacked plane as well, crashed into the Pentagon this morning. An enormous fire is burning there as well. We do not know, it's a situation here, do not know what the extent of the damage at the Pentagon is, what the extent of the possible loss of life and injuries.
All right.
We are just now told there's been a fourth explosion.
And we're also being told that witnesses have reported seeing bodies falling from the Trade Center, and they also saw people jumping from the building. We can only imagine just how terrifying all of this is at ground zero right there.
All of Lower Manhattan inundated with the dust and debris from the tower collapse. There's actually a threat of respiratory problems if you go outside now. If you're anywhere in Lower Manhattan, the best thing you can do is just stay in your home, stay put.
And we just received word that there was a fourth explosion at the World Trade Center. We have no idea what that was, if it was related to the first two explosions, secondary explosions from the first two, or obviously other attacks. But that is the live picture that you're seeing. That is where the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers, once stood, and now devastation.
The AP is calling it a well-orchestrated orgy of terrorism, and clearly this was the one that that the United States has been dreading since terrorism began.
And in two cities, you're looking right now, we're back live in New York City, Lower Manhattan, where the World Trade Center was. We were just showing you pictures of the Pentagon in Washington, where another plane, a fire plane over the Washington. This is a live shot. You are looking at this now. Take a look. This is a plane over Washington. A plane over Washington. That was a fighter plane.
It's to no surprise, military planes have now taken to the air over Washington amid reports that other planes, perhaps they fear other hijacked planes with other targets in mind, were in the Washington area. We have just been informed that in western Pennsylvania, Somerset County Airport, a large plane has gone down there. We don't know what the circumstances are, don't know if there's any particular intended target in western Pennsylvania. One more thing we'll just have to try to effort more information on and keep you up on.
Now, you know, as we're talking to you and telling you what you're seeing right in front of your eyes, if you're able to watch television at this point, if you have this communication vehicle, the country, the eastern part of this country, is under attack.
Yes, the country's under attack, absolutely. The highest levels of security are in effect in Washington and New York. Life has come to a standstill here. Traffic has come to a halt. Bridges and tunnels are all completely closed. Every contingency plan you could think of, and then some, are in effect right now, although I must say that this attack, I'm going to guess, has exceeded the worst fears of people who specialize in this type of prevention.
I think that would be safe to say. Again, two of our city's biggest towns right now on the East Coast, New York City, Washington under attack, President calling it the country under terrorist attack.
Sukanya standing by, Sukanya Christian back on 42nd Street. They've evacuated the UN. Sukanya.
All right, we're just going to take a look at what's happening on 3rd Avenue. The UN is right over here. You can see the Israeli consulate is over here. You can see emergency service medical squad racing down 2nd Avenue to get to where you're going to. Obviously, a lot of people trying to get out of the city. Mark was actually in Lower Manhattan. Mark, you witnessed the first plane going in. Can you just tell us what you saw?
Just heard a loud noise as though the plane was going to crash, and everyone ducked. And then we saw the plane just veer right into the building and hit the top of the building.
That was the first one, right? What went through your mind, and what did you see? Did you see the smoke? Did you see the explosion?
Saw everything. Thought it was just a random act. Thought that a plot pilot had gotten out of control. Then we were watching it from Lafayette Street, and about 10 minutes later, 12 minutes later, the second one hit from behind. Just saw a glimpse of the plane coming down and hitting from the opposite side of the building. It was like a big rippling effect. All the glass exploded.
Can you tell me what was happening on the ground? Were people running for cover?
Oh yeah, when the second one, first people were watching, spectators were watching the first building go up in flames. When the second one hit, people started running. There was paper flying everywhere. You could see there was like a big rippling effect. People were screaming. And then within 5 or 10 minutes, there were people actually in our area who were bloody, shirts were ripped.
The Associated Press was reporting that there were reports from witnesses saying that there were bodies falling from the ground.
Right,
did you see that?
Yeah, you could see things falling from it. You know, from the distance we were at, it looked like there was a lot of metal falling, a lot of paper, building, office supplies, desks coming down, and then of course bodies. You could see a lot of bodies flying down as well. It was awful.
Can you just tell me, you saw one of the towers collapse, didn't you?
Right, it collapsed right on top of itself. And then it was pandemonium. People were screaming, running for cover, instant cloud cover. And then I was able to get on the subway at the time and make it back up to Uptown. So
when you saw the collapse, that's when you left?
Right, that's when I left.
Did you know that the second tower also collapsed?
I actually was on the roof of my building here on 42nd. I just witnessed the second tower collapse.
What is going through your mind now? Do you feel like you're in shock? Do you feel a little...
Well, yeah, obviously in shock. When the second plane hit, obviously you start to realize that it's some kind of plot or some kind of attack against the United States. But when the first plane hit, you tend to think it's just a random act. You know, obviously a pretty incredible random act. But when the second one hit, then you pretty much goes through your mind that we're under attack. And then you hear the car went off in the State Building, Pentagon got attacked, so pretty organized.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much, Mark, for joining us live. Obviously, a lot of people from downtown are slowly making their way uptown as people try and escape the scenario and the scene and the chaos that is occurring in Lower Manhattan. Once again, this has been a familiar scene all down 2nd Avenue. We want to give you some perspective. If you can look over here on the corner of 2nd Avenue and 42nd Street, the building that this ambulance is passing right now, that is the Israeli consulate. Obviously, the Israeli consulate has heightened its security force outside. They have already closed 2 lanes on 2nd Avenue. And over here, you can see that they have closed down part of the way to the UN as well. A lot of people asking questions, trying to figure out what is going on. We've been actually trying to tell people that train service as well as buses, all the tunnels and bridges are closed. We're going to try and find some other people here if we could. Ma'am, are you aware of what's going on, or?
I don't know. I just remember.
Okay. Ma'am, are you aware of what's going on? Have you been evacuated from your building?
I'm not dead, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Obviously, a lot of people are trying to get in touch with their loved ones to tell them that they are okay. As many people, as you can see, are getting on their cell phones. And once again, this is a very familiar scene, people waiting online. Ma'am, were you evacuated from your building?
No, not yet, actually.
Yeah. Obviously, you are in a moment here as people kind of collect their thoughts as to what's happening today. A lot of people unclear, praying for their loved ones. Can you just tell me what's going through your mind right now?
Right now I'm just calm. I'm really calm right now. I just say a prayer. You leave it in the Lord's hands. That's all you can do right now.
Are you trying to get in touch with your loved one?
Yes.
And I will leave it at that. A lot of people keeping faith, keeping with their faith, and keeping strong. And of course, we'll give you the very latest. So, Jim and Lynn, back to you.
Very much, Sukanya. Let's sum up what has taken place so far this morning, in case you haven't heard. It all began just before 9 o'clock this morning at the World Trade Center. We're going to take a look at the tape from this morning. Actually, one plane was hit just before 9. Just after 9, a plane hijacked from Newark Airport crashed, you'll see here, through the back of Tower 1 of the World Trade Center. These are apparently hijacked planes, the first one from Boston, the second one from Newark. About an hour after that, that tower, Tower number 1, collapsed to the ground. At this point, only one of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center is still standing. But even as the hour went by, people saw it beginning to lean, beginning to buckle. And about 20 minutes ago, the second World Trade Center tower collapsed to the ground. That's the view live now from Lower Manhattan, no longer, of course, distinguished, as it has been for the past 30 years, by those giant Trade Center towers, a symbol around the world, a symbol of New York's and America's commerce and economic power, now gone, and Lower Manhattan awash in smoke and dust and debris and thousands of sad and tragic stories that we will be learning about in the hours and the days ahead. We also want to mention one other thing here about the primary election. This is primary election day, which seems almost a trite notion at this time, but we do want to tell you that the primary election, I'm sure this is unprecedented in New York history, has been called off. A number of people, of course, would have voted earlier in the day, but the election has been called off. What the mechanics of this will be in terms of rescheduling another one can only guess, but that is another subject for another day. But we do want to tell you that if you were planning to go to your polls today and vote, all the polls have been closed. The election has been postponed. No voting today. Another item. A large plane crashed just north of the Somerset County Airport. That's about 80 miles north of Pittsburgh. Told it is a Boeing 767. We don't have any more word on what that is or what reason that plane was crashed in that place. You're looking out at the Pentagon, where about an hour and a half ago, a plane was crashed into the center of the America's military might. A serious fire, serious damage resulting there. We don't know what the casualties are there as well. A car bomb went off at the State Department earlier today as well. In short, the northeastern part of the U.S. is under terrorist attack. I'm joined now by my colleague, Kari Tong, who has joined us and learned about this in much the same way as everybody else has. Tell me your thoughts this morning, Kari.
I don't mind telling you that I'm shaky right now. My son goes to school in that area, and for the last hour, of course, I've been trying to contact him in the school. There's been no answer because, as we all know now, the cell phones are not working. I'm horrified. I'm stunned. I can't believe that I'm even looking at what we're looking at right now. When I got out on 6th Avenue, there were hordes of people in the street, gathered on the sidewalk, total chaos. None of the cabs would take any passengers. They were all filled. I actually had to ask somebody at a stoplight, a nice man. I said, "Excuse me, I must get to work. Could you take me?" He said, "No problem." Gregory Jarvis is his name. I thank you. I jumped in there, but it took us forever because the streets were jammed.
Traffic is jammed.
And while we were on 6th Avenue, we heard this giant gasp from the crowds on the street, and we looked behind us, and sure enough, that was when we saw the second tower come down. I actually watched this in total disbelief come crumbling down. And as you can hear my voice, I am shaking and trying to just pull myself together. I'm worried about my little boy. And
yes, all of our viewers certainly must understand that we live here too with our families. This is a tragedy that is going to touch many, if not most, lives of people in this city, and it's an adjustment that we're having to make too, just to kind of accept the reality of this and pass along to you what is going on. What is going on is, as you look at Lower Manhattan, is that the World Trade Center is gone, destroyed by 2 jetliners, hijacked and crashed, each one into one of the World Trade Center towers.
We want to reiterate that the primary election, which was to be held today, has been called off. You mentioned that just earlier because of what has happened today. And I'm looking at this picture right now and seeing the billows of smoke, and where 2 towers once stood just an hour ago, 2 hours ago, and now no longer exist. The people who are, I suppose we weren't able to get close enough to see what was going on the ground.
No, nobody can yet. But certainly you have to think that the scenario of the buildings collapsing, although the anti-terrorism police and the security police and the emergency management people are the best in the world here in New York City, and one can only hope that there was time to get the people not only out of the building but away from the building as well before the collapse came. Having said that, we still don't know how many people were killed in simply the impact itself or on board the planes. The 767 that was hijacked from Boston that crashed first, we have no word yet on what was on that plane, but one can only assume that on a morning flight on a Tuesday morning that it was filled with travelers.
We have an eyewitness on the phone with us right now. His name is Jeremy Fox. Jeremy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Tell me where you were and what you saw when this happened.
I was in bed, and then when the first explosion happened and it rattled my apartment. Hold on, let me put my TV on mute. And then I got out of bed and I heard a lot of ambulances and sirens, and I went onto my terrace, and I live east of the Twin Towers, and I saw the explosion of the second plane. I couldn't see the second plane coming in.
And here's a look at that second plane hitting Tower number 1.
Yeah, I saw that exact, and it was horrific, and it was a firebomb. I took pictures of it, and then I called all my friends to make sure they're okay, and then I was sitting out watching. I was on my terrace watching, you know, the fire and the horror and the ambulances downstairs, because I looked down onto the emergency room of Beekman Hospital, NYU Downtown Hospital, and as I was watching, the left building without the tower, without the satellite tower, blew.
All right, Jeremy, hold that thought for just one moment. We're going to go back outside here to 42nd Street, Sukanya Christian, with someone who was close to the action. Ron in Santa, as a matter of fact, it appears to me.
That's right, Jim. I'm with Ron in Santa. Ron, obviously, you're making the trek from the World Trade Center. Can you just tell us where were you when this happened, sir?
Well, I was fairly close to the building, actually. I was on my way to cover the event for CNBC, and as we were walking across to try to get to the West Side Highway where we thought our trucks were, the south tower started to collapse, and we were fairly close to it, and it started to rain down debris. My cameraman and I ran, and I ditched around a corner, and there was just debris falling everywhere till it was pitch black, and you couldn't breathe. I ducked into a car and stayed there till it just got light enough to get into a building. And then we stayed in there and then hooked up with some police and drove up here. It was as bad a thing as I could have imagined. I mean, honestly, I thought I was going to die in the car because it wasn't getting any lighter.
Can you just tell me, what was the scene like outside when you were able to emerge from the car? What were you able to see? You're obviously covered in thick soot.
Well, I mean, if you've seen movies about a nuclear winter, that's kind of what it looked like. I mean, it was a deep gray haze with just a few blinking lights that you could see on police cars, and maybe some small lights coming out from the inside of buildings. But you couldn't see much, and we just stayed in the building for a little while and then caught up with a couple police officers.
Were you down there when the second tower went down at all, or
No,
at that
we
time
weren't.
where you were able to get out?
I don't know if I was, because I don't know what time that happened. We were inside a building that was probably about 3 or 4 blocks away, and then we just worked our way around the south side of the island with a couple of policemen, and we picked up some injured people on the way up and dropped them off at the hospital.
Tell us about the injured people. I mean, what were you able to see? I mean, were there people lining the sidewalks? I mean,
There were some
how
people-
severe?
Well, the injuries that I saw were not terribly severe. There were some bloodied people. The policeman that we picked up had a deep gash in his forehead. One woman that we also picked up, the police officer picked up actually, had shrapnel in her arm. She didn't know what from.
Ron, when you made your way up here, do you think people are aware of what exactly is happening here today?
I think, you know, the early reports were fairly comprehensive about the various activities that are going on elsewhere around the country as well. And I think as we walked up here, most people kind of were fairly well apprised of the situation. Now, as for what else is going on, I think, you know, it's kind of hard to get in touch at the moment.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're glad that you're doing well. Ron Insana of CNBC, he was obviously down there at the World Trade Center. You could see by the way he looked, obviously, he was there when the first tower went off. He recounted for us that he had to almost duck into a car to catch his breath and to stay alive. He said that if he didn't get that car, that he wouldn't. Obviously, you can see a lot of people kind of surrounding here, a lot of people just walking around unaware of what's really going on. Ma'am, do you know what's going on, or where are you headed to?
No, I'm sorry.
Sir, were you evacuated from your building?
Yeah, we were in United Nations.
Yes.
We have been evacuated.
Can you tell us what they're saying to you at the United Nations?
They say that the essential staff could stay,
Okay.
but all the people who were not essential, that didn't belong to the Security Council, had to leave.
All right, thank you. Just to give you an idea, Kaidi and Jim, just take a look at 2nd Avenue over here. It's pretty much turned into a pedestrian mall as pedestrians are pretty much taking over the street as people are just trying to find a place to go. A lot of people have been asking questions as Are the trains working?
Yes,
Are the buses working?
I would say that a lot of people's concern at this point is now, even though it's not even noon yet, is how are they going to get home tonight?
Right, how do they
because
get out of the
it appears
city?
there's no way to get out of the city at this point.
There appears there is no way out of the city. If you can come over here, this is a scene that we're seeing over and over again. We don't want to intrude on their space, but obviously a lot of people emotional here, taking a moment, trying to realize the gravity of this situation. People kind of holding on to each other and trying to come to grips. Also, take a look at this, the phone line, Jim. We've been showing you this again and again all morning. People trying to call their loved one, people trying to say that they are okay, that they are alive, and that they are staying put. Also, we want to show you over here, this is the Israeli consulate for a lot of people, and of course there's heightened security over here. And also past this way, you can see that is the way to the United Nations, and the roadways are completely closed as police.
I think we just lost it, Kanye, there, the signal.
Okay.
You brought up a very good point, because people this time are trying to find some way of getting home. The trains have stopped. Of course, all the airports have been closed. I understand that City Hall has been evacuated. And we hear that in Brooklyn, they're getting dust and debris falling on them as far away as Brooklyn.
Yes, I wish that we could tell you more. You're looking at a live picture now from Washington, D.C. That once again, that is the Pentagon. Still fire burning there after reportedly a plane crashed into the Pentagon as well this morning, shortly after the impacts on the World Trade Center. We wish we could tell you more about transportation issues right now, but obviously with the life-saving efforts that must be going on in Lower Manhattan, that has been pushed a bit down on the priority list. And I think the best thing that we can do for residents and commuters alike is to first get out of Lower Manhattan or stay in your homes where it's safe, and just try to hunker down and deal with this as best you can. It's going to be impacting our lives here for many days to come.
Yes, it certainly is not a normal day in any way to speak of, and we just were told that the Yankee game has been postponed that was scheduled for tonight. Obviously, no one's going to be in any mood to celebrate or to play.
No, and
baseball.
I think that's probably a security precaution as well, Kaidi.
Exactly.
The last thing that, there's the last thing that the government, emergency management people want right now is large groups of people gathered in one place.
Exactly.
So that's not going to happen. Summing up, once again, in case you just happen to be joining us or have heard something going on and want to get the latest is that the World Trade Center is gone. Each of the towers struck by a hijacked jetliner this morning, one just before 9 o'clock, one just after 9 o'clock. The plane that was struck by the second plane, or the tower that was struck by the second plane, tower number 1 collapsed first. Here comes the second plane. You see the gaping wound from the first plane near the top. Here comes the second plane, reportedly hijacked from Newark Airport, directly
hitting
into the building, virtually coming through
it.
The other side. About a half hour to 40 minutes later, the building just could not take it structurally and collapsed in a huge plume of smoke and debris. And about 20 minutes to a half hour after that, the second tower collapsed. You saw a glimpse of one of the communications antennas on top dropping into the smoke.
It's impossible even to think about the carnage and chaos that is going on right there.
Well,
and all the people who work in that building, all the government buildings,
well, certainly,
government
exactly.
offices,
and
the
certainly
restaurants.
What we don't know is what kind of evacuation procedures, what kind of haste they were able to make with their evacuation procedures after the initial hit.
Exactly.
Certainly the prayers are going out that everyone in the buildings was able to get out, but then you start thinking that it was only 20, 25 more minutes and another 35, 40 more minutes before the tower collapsed. How much could be done in such a huge building? These are all things we're going to have to learn.
And there's another view of the collapse a little closer. This is at street level. You're seeing the debris just pouring down on the street. And again, we don't know what the extent of the casualties could be. This is the first tower collapse.
And you see down on the street, of course, emergency personnel
already in place.
We are getting our security procedures for here at the Daily News